This Sahih report from one of the scholars of the Tabi'in and the son of the Ink of the Ummah indicates that one of the signs of the appearance of the Mahdi at the end of time will be the rising of the sign that accompanies the rising of the sun. This report, although mawq', is considered marfu up to the Prophet peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, because a report based on something unseen like this cannot be based on ijtihad or human reasoning ra'i, so its source must be revelation. This answer does not clearly explain the nature of the sign that rises with the rising of the sun. In a number of answer there are reports that explain what is meant by this sign. Among them is the answer narrated from Hussein ibn Ali, may Allah be pleased with him, who said, "When you see a sign in the sky, a great fire from the east, appearing for a few nights, then at that time the people become liberated, because it is the coming of the Mahdi." Uqad ad-Durar 106. Muhammad bin Ali bin Abi Talib reported that he said, "When you see fire from the east, for 3 days or 7 days, then throw yourselves on the spaciousness of the family of Muhammad." Uqad ad-Durar 106. Ka'b, may Allah be pleased with him, reported, "A star will appear from the east before the Mahdi, and it will have a tail that will shine brightly." Uqad ad-Durar 106. Katsir bin Murrah al-Hadrami reported that he said, "The sign of calamity in Ramadan is a sign in the sky, after which is strife among people. If you find this, then stock up on food as much as you can." Nu'aym al-Fitan 150. Khalid ibn Ma'dan reported, "There will appear a sign in the form of a pillar of fire, rising from the east, and all the inhabitants of the earth will see it. Whoever sees it, let him prepare for his family food for a year." Nu'aym al-Fitan 150. Ka'b said about the sign that will appear in the sky, "It will be a star rising from the east, illuminating the inhabitants of the earth, as the moon illuminates on a full night." Nu'aym al-Fitan 152. Ka'b also reported that he said, "And a star that was cast illuminated it as the moon illuminates it. Then it coiled itself as a snake coils, so that the two ends almost met. And the star that was cast with it became an arrow that swooped down from the sky, accompanied by a loud noise, until it fell in the eastern region. A great calamity befell the people because of it." Nu'aym al-Fitan 160. The muhakkik of this book states that the sanad is Hasan. This information is provided by a number of atsar, the reports that have been narrated from the righteous scholars, whether from among the companions, the Tabi'in, or other than them, add to the 2 Sahih reports from Ibn Abbas and his son Ali. All of them corroborate what I have described, namely, that there is a close connection between the star that strikes the earth and the sign of smoke. Some of them clearly state its fall, and some of them describe the characteristics of this star before its fall. That it circulated in the Earth's orbit, or close to the Earth's orbit for several days, and illuminated the Earth, because of its proximity to resemble the brightness of the moon. Some of these atsar hint at the tremendous damage caused by the fall of this star to the Earth, to the extent that some of them describe the need to prepare food supplies for a whole year. These atsar with this characterization correspond in their descriptions to what astronomers describe as the fall of a meteor to the Earth. Allah, the Almighty, says, "When they see a part of the sky fall, they will say, 'That is a cloud piled up.'" Athar 44. Explanation: this verse, although it speaks of the disbelievers of Quraysh who turned away from the truth, as some scholars of exegesis have said, and contains a threat to them, it also contains an amazing clue, which is the connection between the large pieces of falling rocks and the thick, black clouds that accumulate. This meaning has been explained by a number of astronomers when they said, "Indeed, the fall of a meteor to the Earth is sufficient to create a heavy cloud with accumulated smoke, which partially or completely obscures the view of the sun. With it, we can examine how similar this miracle is, and how well it matches the statements of astronomers with what the verse mentions about the consequences of falling pieces from the sky." Similarly, what the verses in Surah ad-Dukhan tell us is that the smoke covered the earth, obscured the eyes of its inhabitants, and the wind was painful torment. The verse with this description seems to hint at some events that will occur and will be experienced by humans in a real way. This is what the disbelievers of Quraysh never experienced. What is astonishing is that this verse comes after 15 verses that show the disbelievers' distress, their arrogance, deception, defiance, and disbelief, and their intention to make Allah angry with their behavior. What is even more astonishing is that 15 verses after this verse, Allah, the Almighty, swears by a falling star, or by a star when it falls down from above. 2. The link between Dajjal and the smoke sign. Hudhayfa ibn Asad al-Ghattari radiyallahu anhu reported, "The Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, looked at us while we were talking. He said, 'What are you talking about?' They replied, 'We are talking about the day of judgment.' He said, 'Verily, the day of resurrection will not occur until you see before it 10 signs, and he mentioned them: smoke, the Dajjal, animals, the rising of the sun from its place of set Muslim. Al-Fitan wa Asarathas, Saj, Hadith No. 2901. We say, this hadith has already been explained in the previous section. What helps our understanding here is that this hadith and its narrations do not mention the 10 major signs of the last days in any order, but only mention them in their entirety. By looking at this hadith, we find that the sign of smoke appears before the Dajjal, but that order is not found here. The sequence between one sign and another is derived from a number of other related narrations and indications. What is important to mention here is that the smoke sign is considered to be one of the major signs of the hour, and it must occur before the occurrence of the Day of Judgment. From Lumu Omar radiyallahu anhuma, he said, "Then the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said to Lumu Shayyad, Verily, I have kept a store for you." He saved for him, on the day when the heavens will come with apparent smoke. Ad-Dukhan 10. Ibn Shayyad said, "That is smoke." Explanation: this hadith is one of a number of narrations that clearly describe the nature of the conversation that took place between the Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, and Ibn Shayyad. The Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, wanted to find out the true identity of Ibn Shayyad, whether he was the Dajjal or not. The testimony in this hadith is that the Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, hid something, namely the verse about smoke, and Ibn Shayyad found out about it. The question that needs to be asked here is, what is the reason why the Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, chose this verse in particular? The usual situation would have been for the Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, to hide something of a tangible nature, such as an arrow or a small item or something else. This is something that would normally be imagined to be hidden. But upon closer inspection, it turns out that what the Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, was hiding was the verse about the coming of smoke from the sky. Perhaps this hadith contains a prophetic indication that one of the signs of the Dajjal's coming is the appearance of smoke. It could also be that the smoke sign is a preparation for the Dajjal's exit and is closely related to the famine that befalls the earth. The smoke sign is also related to the approaching of the time before the Dajjal, then the distancing of the first 3 days for the Dajjal. The sign of smoke also relates to the years of earthquakes due to abnormal uncharacteristic shocks that occur suddenly. It is also possible that the sign of smoke relates to the spread of murder as a result of famine or drought. The most important thing here is to know and understand the connection between the Dajjal and the smoke sign. In general, the link is that the sign of smoke is a sign of preparation for the Dajjal's exit. This is why the Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, hid this verse from Ibn Shayyad. Samra ibn Jundab, may Allah be pleased with him, reported that the Messenger of Allah, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, delivered a sermon after the solar eclipse prayer when he said, "After that, some people claimed that this solar eclipse, or that lunar eclipse, or the disappearance of this star from its orbit, was caused by the death of prominent people from among the inhabitants of the earth. Indeed, they lied, but it is one of the many signs of Allah's power, so that his servants may learn a lesson from it, and then Allah will see which of them repents to him. By Allah, indeed I have seen since I stood here praying this prayer, what you must have encountered in the affairs of your world and your hereafter. Verily, by Allah, the hour will not come until 30 liars come out, the last of whom will be the squint one who is blind and one-eyed Dajjal, whose left eye will be removed. It will not be so until you see things getting worse and worse for yourselves. Then you ask each other, has your prophet told you about some of these things? So the mountains will be moved from their places. So the mountains will be moved from their places. Al-Hakim, Hadith No. 1230. He said, this hadith is sahih based on the conditions of two sheikhs al-Bukhari and Muslim, but they did not issue it. The data obtained in this hadith. This hadith is a warning from the Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, in his sermon after the solar eclipse. He goes on to tell us about the fitna of the Dajjal and its details. What helps us to understand this hadith is the last sentence. The Dajjal will not appear except after people have seen a major event that is out of the ordinary, that has a great impact on the Ummah and raises many questions about it, or an event that prompts them to examine the reports of prophetic knowledge that point to it or inform them about it. There is a hint in this hadith that a great calamity will befall everyone in this Ummah, and that horrible and shocking things will happen other than those mentioned in the hadith of the Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. Perhaps the great fitna that will befall the Ummah today will emerge from this direction, when the majority of scholars will be confused as to whether there is a detailed description of this event in the hadiths of the Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. This hadith also hints at the shifting of the mountains from their pre-Dajjal positions. There are two possible points to this event, as we see it. The first possibility is that the disappearance of the mountains is a sign of our technological age. It could be that the disappearance of the mountain is a sign that shows the modern city and its technological engineering that has been able to eliminate most of the mountain for the expansion of settlements or the like. We can observe that it is very easy to eliminate mountains in this day and age. We can also clearly see that the current era is the perfect era to eliminate most of the existing mountains, even though mountains are a symbol of solidity since thousands of years ago. The second possibility is that the shifting of the mountains is due to various natural events and has an effect on the balance of the Earth's layers. The mountains were shifted out of place as a result of massive geological changes that befell the Earth, affecting the state of the mountains themselves, collapsing parts of them, and shifting them out of position. The clues in the phrasing of the hadith corroborate the second possibility, and this is the stronger one for two reasons. First, the sentence pattern of the hadith attributes the word shift to the mountain itself, thus confirming that it was not caused by human action. Secondly, this hadith indicates that there are indications and abnormal changes that occur before the appearance of the Dajjal, so it is more appropriate that they are not due to human actions. Conclusion. 1. The sign of the hour in the form of smoke occurs before the hour, and it is one of the major signs of the hour. The Quranic verses in Surah Ad-Dukhan indicate that it is a true and clear smoke that comes upon people and covers them so that they cannot see, inflicting upon them a painful torment. This torment forces them to take refuge in faith by force, so Allah removes the torment from them, explaining that the disappearance of this torment does not last for a long time. It is as if this affair is closely related to the small apocalypse that occurs before the great apocalypse. This small apocalypse begins with the appearance of a number of major signs of the hour, which are preceded by some natural events related to the sign of smoke. Perhaps it is this small apocalypse that is referred to by the name Azifa in Surah and Naim, especially since the meaning of Astfa is near. 2. The verse in Surah at Tur, verse 44, relates to the falling of debris meteors and the like from the sky with thick clouds that are piled up and can be seen by people. The reason for this verse indicates that it is a future event that is bound to happen, because the verse relates what people said when they saw it. 5 verses after this, verse 44 begins Surah and Naim, in which Allah swears at the beginning by a star falling from the sky, and closes with the mention of something near Azafat al-Azifa. 3. There are a number of ahadith from the Salaf righteous scholars that link the sign of the smoke with an object falling from the sky. Some of them refer to a great sign that will have a devastating effect on the stability of the Earth's sphere. And the statements of the Salaf are in perfect agreement with the astronomers' statements about the effect of the fall of the meteor. 4. There is a clear connection between the two signs of the Day of Judgment, the smoke and the Dajjal. We find this connection in the Prophet's meeting with Ibn Shayyad and his questioning him specifically about the sign of smoke. The purpose of this encounter was to reveal the true identity of Ibn Shayyad, that is, whether he was the Dajjal or not. 5. There are many ahadith that indicate the great change that took place suddenly before the coming of the Dajjal. Among them, the ahadith mentioned in this discussion, and which point to these great things without separation. They also indicate the disappearance of mountains. The strongest opinion is that the disappearance of the mountains is due to the major events that have befallen the earth.